They really want the best for us and really want like the humans to step into their potential. They will assist in guiding us to that. They can help you expand and grow, and you guys can do it exponentially together. They're your little like healing partners if you let them.
Welcome to Season 2 of the podcast, Spirit Doggies. I'm your host, Danny Finkhauser. This podcast series explores the spiritual connection between humans and dogs and is a companion to my short story, Dog Deities. Dog Deities is about a fictional society where people idolize their dogs, literally. You can learn more about the podcast and read the short story at dogdeities.com. Welcome back to Spirit Doggies, Season 2 of the Danny Finkhauser podcast. I'm your host, Danny. My guest today is Jamie Wozny. Jamie is a modern-day seer and priestess of light. She has a gift for helping people connect with their soul purpose, and she offers one-on-one mentorships, group coaching, online courses, corporate sessions, and much more. I've personally worked with Jamie through a variety of her offerings, but the very first one was an animal communication session, and it happened after I heard her on a podcast, so this is very full circle. So how are you doing, Jamie?
I love that. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
I'm good, Danny. Thank you for having me.
Yeah. All right. So I want to start with a question that I ask basically everyone, and it's really fun to hear the variety of answers. And that's, what's your intuition origin story, especially going all the way back to the earliest time that you knew that you were intuitive? And then what activated starting to train in it later on?
I love that question. The origin story would be the first time I can remember being super intuitive psychic was when my mom lost her lip gloss. And I closed my eyes and I got a flash of where it was. It could have been anywhere in the house. And we had a basement, we had backyard, front yard, car, and I got a flash that it was in the bushes in the front yard. I guess it had flung out of her purse, and lo and behold, it was in the bushes in the front yard. So I remember having experiences like that, but not thinking anything of it because, no one really talks to you about, well, sometimes you're raised in certain families that do, but innocently wasn't really spoken about or talked about.
And it was just an instinct that you were like, let me close my eyes and picture where it might be.
And then I just saw it, and it's like I didn't think anything of that. And I remember having experiences too where I'd wake up and I'd see like a white figure over me, very peaceful, very angelic. And I remember at the time my family taking me to a therapist because I was like, I think I can see ghosts. And so my family at the time, I remember my grandma talking to me about Casper and that Casper is a friendly ghost. And so just to not, so I wasn't afraid because, again, I was the only one in the family, I guess, outwardly experiencing these things. So
Were you afraid though? Or did they just
I was terrified.
Okay.
When when you don't have tools around your gifts and you're little, my God, it was like the dark was my deepest fear. Having a ghost, like, I'm saying ghost now because that's what I said when I was little, but like having a being like speak to me, or if I saw something appear, I'd be like, like get me out of here. It was a terror, but I feel very empowered now and I understand the spirit world. So I don't feel like that anymore.
I feel like that. Like the more that I learn that stuff is real, the more I'm like, please do not show up in my room as like a being. I'm not ready for it.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Play with someone else. Thank you.
Yeah. So that was childhood. And then when did you consider that this might be something to build on and then potentially use professionally?
Yeah. So childhood, there were these little moments and I was very sensitive, like super in tune, super emotional. So the clues were always there. And I guess I'll just say I became human. I went to college, I partied, I didn't really, because I'll hear stories of some people that are like, oh yeah, I was reading Eckhart Tolle at 13. And I'm like, I was reading Babysitter's Club or like Goosebumps. I had no, connection to that I was aware of. And then gosh, what am I now? 40. So I guess around like late 20s, I had my, I guess, awakening. the beginning of my heroin journey, you could say.
Yeah.
My physical body, all sorts of stuff was going on. I couldn't figure out how to heal. And so my introduction into reintroduction into my inner wisdom was, I met a Reiki master because I was an actress. I was like, I'm going to come to LA to be an actress. And I was at a premiere of a movie, and she was doing the intro because I think she was friends with the director or something. And I didn't know what Reiki was at the time. And I'm like, I could use energy healing. It was just this weird like thing. I was like, I don't even know why I said that because I didn't even know what that meant at the time. And so I met her, and I remember my Reiki 1 training having the same thing I did as a kid. I closed my eyes and I had my hands on this person, and I just saw these images again. And I was like, oh, interesting. Am I making this up? Is this real? What does this mean? And then the last, 12 years, I guess it is now, just I call it the language of the soul through animals, through people, through spirit. I've gone on this journey of like, okay, this is something. Let's study it. Let's master it. Let's embody it, and realize, whoa, there's this other dimension that like we kind of don't really have access to or context for that is very real.
Yeah. And so seeing the images, is that still how you experience it? I know a lot of people have different sort of languages for how they receive the information.
Yes. And in my trainings with people, be it animal training or people training, we go over that because so I see a variety of different ways. I do see the images. I feel things in my body. I will hear a word. I have a lot of knowings too. I'll just be like, oh, this is what's going on. And something I've seen too with a lot of students of mine is if you don't know your specific language, like if you don't know you speak French or you don't know you speak Spanish or Portuguese or whatever it is, you don't realize how intuitive you are. Because I believe that we have one that's the strongest. And if you just assume, oh, I can't see anything, or I'm not getting any knowings, or I don't feel anything in my body, you don't realize how intuitive you are. So knowing your own specific way that you're intuitive, to me, will open up a whole world you didn't even realize.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I like to say we all have the hardware, but we just don't have the software yet.
Girl, that is a great way to put it. That is a great way to put it.
And so moving over to dogs, because I know you have a dog,
I
and
do.
I always see your dog in your Insight Timer lives.
Yeah.
So there's a relationship there. And what is your relationship like with your dog, and how does it play into your spiritual practice?
Yeah, that's also a great question. I see him as a soul dog, like a soulmate, and I believe,
Yeah.
sure, the Bambi's like that for you as well.
Yeah.
There are certain animals that come into our life that just help us heal, help us grow, teach us things some humans couldn't. They're just, Eckhart Tolle calls them, there's a book he wrote that I checked out from the library once, and it's Guardians of Presence. I think that's what it is, Guardians
Oh,
of Presence. It's like a kid's book. It's a great read. Um,
yeah.
and it is revering animals. And like my last dog, we had a different, beautiful connection, and he brought out certain things in me. Hobbes is my dog, and I teach a lot about authenticity and being your true self, whatever that is in the moment. And he really, like, there's something about his presence that I can just be myself. And I was working with a coach once who was like, your Instagram videos that you do that are with your dog are the most authentic. I see you, James, when you're just with him or around him. It's like he helps me just go, oh, whatever. I don't care what they think. This is Hobbes. I'm just going to be weird or silly or crying or whatever it may be. So he's definitely an opener of authenticity and truth and joy in my life.
Yeah. And that's so interesting too, how different dogs could bring out a different side of you. I definitely think
Yeah.
different people bring out a different side. Like find yourself around some people and you're making jokes more easily and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But it's interesting that a different dog could bring out something specific in
That's a
that
great
way.
point. It's totally, but yeah, they all have different times in our life for different things.
What was the story of how you found Hobbes?
So my dog that's in heaven, Benson, he had lived until I think he was almost 14. And, we waited a couple years.
Okay.
And it was hard and it was sad. And, it's like, I think there was a lot of healing I needed to do because it was, if you've ever been in that experience and you're super close with your animal and then there's like quiet in your house, like it's rough, and so then you have
Yeah.
to face, well, what in me am I not, what in me am I not, like, why is it so quiet? So I started to have to go
Hmm.
on walks on my own and all of these things. So I finally got to the point where I thought, you know what, I'm going to foster again because at least I can help animals and have that being around, but I don't have to, like, because those were really big shoes to fill. And so I drove out to the desert in Pomona, 2 hours away in traffic, because I used to dog walk when I first moved to LA and I was an actress. It's like all the breadcrumbs kind of come together.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I drove out and I don't know how I roped him in, but I asked my partner if he'd want to come with me. And because I was asked this rescue, if we could foster, and they were like, go look at these two dogs. So anyway, we got there. The dog was a beautiful dog, but was afraid of men. So I wasn't the person to help because that would have had to just be all on me and was like barking at the man, and it would have just been a little chaotic in our space. But anyway, Hobbes was there, and I remember code naming him Star at the time. He didn't have a name; he had a number. It was
Uh-huh.
a high kill shelter as well. And of course, like I probably would have been one of the dogs barking too, because all the dogs are scared and barking. And this guy
Yeah.
is leaning up against the wall, just like looking like a G. Like when we walked by and just like kind of looked at us really calm. And I was like, dude, who are you? Like, what is this? He had this ability to hold peace in the middle of the storm,
Oh,
to hold
wow.
light in the middle of the storm. And I thought, okay, we're on the same path. We're trying to do similar things in life. I fell in love immediately. I had a knowing immediately because I
Yeah.
hadn't for 2 years. And then
Hmm.
it took me a month to convince my boyfriend to be like, this is our dog. Like, we need to go get him. And I had another friend do an animal reading to because I'm like, if it's coming from me, you might not believe it, to like show him like this
Yeah.
dog wants to come with us. So I gave him an ultimatum and he was like, okay. So anyway, Hobbs, gosh, he just turned 7, which is crazy because we got him when he was a little under 2.
Did you know his background, like where he had come from?
No, the report just said he was pooping blood and beans,
Oh,
which is like,
wow.
yeah, they said he was just found on the street. He had a collar. He had a leather
Hmm.
collar with no name. He wasn't chipped. He wasn't neutered, and he was just filled with ticks and fleas.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
and kind of sickly, just eating food from the outside. But he knew basic, he was friendly and he knew like
Hmm.
sit and stuff. So me and some other animal communicators kind of tuned into him and realized that we think he had just lived outside because he didn't understand a leash when he came to me. Um,
Okay.
and that he was loved but neglected. Like he was not, you know, like he had a family that cared for him. He wasn't abused, but he kind of just
Hmm.
got the bare minimum. Um, and so, because I don't know if you all know how it works at shelters, but they kind of put a hold on the dogs for like 2 or 3 weeks in case their owner comes back.
Okay.
Um, which makes it's good because then they're safe for a little bit in case the
Yeah.
owner like lost the dog, and no one had come back for him. And I'm thinking, how in the world do you not come back for these
Yeah.
dogs that are angels? But I would what we kind of read into was like they didn't really have the financial means or things like that. So he hit the jackpot. I'll tell you, I hit the jackpot too. But
Yeah.
like, you
I
know,
feel the same about me and Bambi.
yeah,
She was 10, and so it's like she has this whole other life that's a mystery, but she's
yeah,
so sweet. So it's like she, definitely someone loved her.
yeah.
But yeah, they weren't able to tell me anything
Wow.
about
I
her
know, it's
background.
crazy. I know, and these
Yeah.
little older babies too. Like, God, I just wish, Danny, like I could start a rescue, or again, having
Hmm.
so many things I love,
Yeah.
especially with the state of the Los Angeles shelters right now. I'll have to share with you too. I'm doing a free event to help them,
Hmm.
a free healing event. But yeah, it's hard to not want to like adopt them all.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Well, it's interesting to mention LA because Bambi came from LA and was moved to New York because there were more people adopting in New
Oh,
York.
wow.
And so I was in New York at the time, but then I grew up in Orange County in Southern
Yeah.
California. So I actually moved back, and I always joke that like she was plotting to bring me back to like her hometown.
Aw. But see how similar you girls like both came back
Yeah,
together. Yeah.
exactly. Yeah. And I actually like that's part of it's kind of written into the short story Dog Deities that I'm launching along with this.
Uh-huh.
That it takes place in Brooklyn and the people in Brooklyn love their dogs, but LA was destroyed because they didn't honor their dogs.
And that's it. They don't
Yeah.
honor their dogs. Yeah.
So, in terms of how you work with animals, with people, so I know you do an animal communication session and you do a lot of other stuff as well. Tell me about that and how animal communication became part of what you do.
Yeah. So, people who meet me in the animal world don't realize I work with people, and people who meet me in the people world. So sometimes I'm like, "Do you want a people session or an animal session?"
Yeah.
I do both, and it's just they're both part of my heart. So I was in my Reiki master training, the last level. I took a whole year to do this program, and I'll keep the story short, but my partner at the time who was in Texas was like, I really um want you to do a healing on my bird. And I said, I don't do work with animals. I'm sorry, I can't help you. And she was adamant. And I thought, well, I guess I'll try what I do on people with animals. Come to find out, the session was amazing. I got so much images popping in, psychic information. So the reason she called me was because for 6 months, the bird was Henry. The cage doors were open in his cage, but he didn't fly out. But he would always fly out, in and out. Could come and go as he pleased. And after I heard him and shared back, what he needed to hear and had the family make the needed adjustments, 5 minutes after our session, have I told you this story? Do you know this one, Danny?
I think so, but
Okay, I didn't know if you had heard.
everyone listening doesn't. So
I know, I know.
tell me
I
the
didn't
whole
know if
story.
I didn't know if you had heard it. I know they don't know it yet. 5 minutes after, I get a selfie. I get a text from the woman of a selfie of her and Henry. He flew out of the cage and is sitting next to her on the couch.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
Yeah, and there's these moments where like, because if you're intuitive listening to this, I know. Again, we don't have context. We're not raised like this, and so you're like, what is this? Am I making this up? Am I crazy? Is this real? But it happened to me enough times to where I was like, that was the catalyst for like, James, you got something here. Let's learn about this. So I ended up studying with this woman who's amazing too. Her name's Lydia Hibby. She's a world-renowned animal communicator. And studying with people who had been doing it professionally for 30 years gave me so much confidence because I was like, oh, I'm doing the same thing they're doing. I got the validation.
Yeah.
Um, so now, fast forward lots of years later, I teach people or share my work with people, animal work, in 3 ways. So you can do a one-on-one reading, which is, I think, what you had, certification, where I teach you everything I know, which is pretty cool, in my opinion. That one's online. And then, since I spoke to you last, I was hiking with Hobbes, and I had just finished an animal reading, and this epiphany blasted through my head, and it was so simple. And I heard psychically,
Yeah.
their needs are your needs. Like, what they need is the exact same thing you need. Like, there's many things that come into readings, and it helps our soul expand, and there's mirrors and reflections and matching things and similar things. But as far as a need, because I started seeing that, I was like, oh my God, the dog needs boundaries, the person needs boundaries. For Hobbes and
Hmm.
I, when he was sick last year, he needed joy, I needed joy. And so I created an offering because, these one-off readings are great, but I've always wanted to create a container where I could do deep work with the human and the animal and me. Like, how sweet to create this beautiful little container. So it's 1 month, it's 4 sessions. We do a reading on your animal, a reading on you, reading on the animal, reading on you. So it's a container where we see, okay,
Hmm.
what are they saying they need? What do you need? How do we do the healing work required? And then we both heal together, meaning you and your animal, and we both expand together. So that's a new offering. It's called Healing Alongside Your Pet.
Yeah, I love that.
I know. And I'm like, I don't think this exists.
That's what I was just going to say. I don't think it does.
Yeah.
But it is so interesting because I think one of the things that you noticed when you did the Bambi reading was like that we're both learning to be less afraid and that we're helping each other with that.
Yep.
And like it is so funny in hindsight that I did her session before ever like hiring you for my session. It's funny how I'll buy something for Bambi that I won't buy for myself, but then I see the benefit for Bambi and I'm like, oh, I kind of want that for me too.
Right. I know exactly. And well, that's kind of the catalyst. I realized I'm like, okay, this is interesting. A lot of my animal clients, and vice versa, right? But a lot of my animal clients turn into my people clients because in the session we see, oh, what in you is ready to heal. We see it in the animal reflecting it in you sometimes. And so I thought, and it's hard for me as the healer to just, because sometimes it does require our work. So to me, I'm caring for the animal a little bit more if I say, let's help the person too, so that the animal can be helped, so that the person can be helped. So it's just a beautiful like alchemy of light that gets created. So yeah, I'm excited to see where that offering goes for a person who really wants that spiritual expansion with your pet, who wants that deeper connection. Because man, you start to see, talk about the soulmate thing. I'm like, wow, we really do come here to support each other.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. You might share my opinion that everyone is intuitive. Learning intuitive practices helps me feel more confident making everyday decisions and regulating my emotions. And the online course that I took with Lotus Lantern became a foundation for so many other skills. Reverend Liliana has a compassionate and inclusive teaching style. Follow my affiliate link in the show notes to learn more. I got into meditation because it helped me get past writer's block, but I never had a committed practice until I did meditation teacher training with The Path. Halfway through the 3-month program, I was having vivid cinematic dreams every night, and I could sit cross legged for 25 minutes without moving. The real reason I love this program is the people that you meet. If you're looking for soul family, try meditation teacher training, and you can find my affiliate link for The Path in the show notes. And finally, if you're ready to manifest your own spirit doggy, you'll want to join the workshop and community called To Be Magnetic. This is not your typical manifestation class, but it's a blend of journal questions and hypnosis meditations that help you to excavate core wounds. And a side effect of doing this work is that you make choices from your true center. So go to the show notes to find my affiliate link for To Be Magnetic, and you'll also get 15% off. I'm curious if there are themes in terms of what people come in for with their
Mm.
animals and what are maybe some of the most common questions that you get.
Yeah, well, I work with a lot of different people, so it's a lot of different things. So there was a woman who, and some of this stuff I know if you're not used to it can sound a little wacky, but there was a woman who was kind of living just in her humanity and hadn't opened up to her spiritual gifts. And when I tuned into this dog who was a lot older, and he felt unseen in kind of like, I see Hobbes as a healer and I see him as a healer. So I feel like energetically he feels acknowledged on that level. And this animal was like, literally, people just think I'm a dog. And it was kind of hard on his soul. He wanted to be acknowledged for having wisdom and spiritual gifts. And I had this immediate, oh my gosh, this woman hasn't opened up to any of her spiritual gifts. She's never had permission to open up to, gosh, spiritual gifts could mean many things like her creativity, her artistry, her connection to the earth, her psychic powers, whatever it is. So, that was an example of he wanted her to know, I know you don't know this about yourself, but could you be open to maybe this was buried when you were young, and kind of pray about it? Like, oh, what are my gifts? What books do I feel led to read to learn about this other dimension? A lot of boundary stuff shows up. That is a theme because we don't really know how to handle that in the animal kingdom. I notice, and maybe this is just my field of work because I work with boundaries with people a lot. Boundaries, needs, desires that we don't honor our needs. We don't set up boundaries. So that theme comes up a lot, where the animal is trying to kind of point the human in the direction. There was actually a reading I did recently where and this was all innocent, but they thought that the dog was kind of high maintenance because it literally wanted its food on a plate and, all of these things. And I get this immediate hit. This person thinks they're high maintenance because of whatever they want in their life. And so it's being projected onto the dog, as opposed to like, this dog is just a goddess or a god, God's a weird word to use, but a goddess and a queen or a king, and likes it how they like it. And maybe there's a part of me I've put into shadow that also wants things a little bit more bougie or like fluffy than maybe someone would judge me for that. So the person kind of acknowledging to the dog, because I always say, like, it's your intention they feel. They may not understand the English language exactly, but if you kind of say, like, it's okay that you want it on a plate, I honor that. And then the person goes and does the work of like, oh, this is my truth, that I like nice things, and I'm going to start to do the work required to honor that as well. So yeah, those are just like a couple.
Yeah. So do people come in and they're sort of like, what does my dog want me to know? Do they ever come in with like a really strange, like behavior related question or something specific that they want to know about the dog?
Yeah, a lot of different things. I also get a lot of end of life animals that come to me, where the people they really want to know, you know, what are their last wishes? How can I make them comfortable?
Yeah.
Um, and in those too, I can see like the sole reason why the dog was there, and to say to the dog, okay, hey, if we never realized what we needed to realize, can you let the person know what you wish for them to realize while you're on the other side?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm doing a reading today, and the woman is asking the same question, like what
Mm-hmm.
do they want to live? I
Yeah.
actually had that, gosh, this is maybe 7 or 8 years ago now. I worked with this dog for 2 years who the doctors had said to put the dog down, it wasn't going to live anymore. And thank goodness the
Mm-hmm.
owner had this intuitive hit, like, I don't believe that. I'm going to do what I can to give it a little more life. So they found me to help them along the process. And I think about a year in, the dog was really sick, and she came to me and said, am I being selfish? Am I just trying to keep this dog alive because I'm in love with this dog? Or is this, and so those are the really tough questions when a communicator, that you get as a healer and a
Yeah.
communicator, because you really do have to trust yourself, because you're telling this person something that is a pretty profound statement, and
Yeah.
which is why I say I'm not a doctor, that, this is what I'm picking up. You also screen this through your own intuition. But I
Mm-hmm.
got this strong feeling. And, my human mind's thinking, are you crazy? This dog is on death's door, and you're telling this woman to keep going, and it costs a lot of money and all this stuff. But
Yeah.
it was a knowing. And I got the specific information of where there was a doctor up in Northern California, which I didn't know they were thinking about going to. And when I had my hands on the dog, I was doing in person at the time, I got this message of Northern California, San Francisco. And so she was like, I'm like, why does that keep coming into my head? And she said, that's where the doctor is for this, like, what did they call it? Experimental. It was new. It was rare. They hadn't really done it before. And I said, no, keep going. And anyway, it was miraculous. The dog got back to 90%. It wasn't walking, got back to 90% better, and then lived another year like that.
Oh,
So yeah, so those questions too of like, am I being selfish? Is this the time? I get that a lot. And then sometimes too, like, yes, these are very spiritual and profound, but there are sometimes, like, a guy came to me, his dog wouldn't eat anything, and I just kept seeing turkey, and I'm like, have you tried turkey? And he said no. I hear from him like 3 weeks later, and he says, "Oh, by the way, I switched to turkey. My dog's eating again. Thanks."
Wow.
So like, it can be simple like that as well.
Yeah. With the story you were just telling about the dog that was near the end of its life, it sounds like the owner had some intuition
Yeah.
around it and just so needed help trusting themselves too. Um,
100%. Yeah. And
yeah.
I'm thinking, I get a lot of cases too where people have tried trainers, they've tried doctors. And I think those things, you still go to your trainer, your doctor. I'm not, you know, hitting on those things. But they're still a little lost and they want one more perspective. I had
Yeah.
a woman a few weeks ago, or maybe it was a couple months ago now, who her dog was young, like two, and all of a sudden got sick one night and then was in the ICU, and they said, "We think your dog might have a few hours left to live." And she's like, "What the hell? This is something." They didn't even know what was wrong. So she called me, and I could see the physical and the energetics. This is very bizarre, but the energetics were about receiving more abundance, to support you. And she said, "That's exactly what I'm going through. I'm struggling financially." And so I said, "I know this sounds weird, but as you settle into that more supported energy, your dog's nervous system will relax as well." I'm seeing obviously go through with the physical surgery, everything that's done, and they weren't sure if the dog was going to live. And I said, "I don't think your dog is finished." The dog came past the other, turned a corner, came out of the ICU, went back home with the mom. It was a miracle. And I kept seeing liquid vitamin B, and I'm thinking, and basically they thought that the dog had eaten some sort of something that got stuck in its body. I'm like, why am I seeing liquid vitamin B? But I said, it is strong for you to take it and for the dog to take it. And that's also like a calming, it can calm your body, it can be really good for the
Okay.
nervous system. Anyway, a week later, she calls and she says, "I went to this doctor, this homeopath, or not homeopathic, holistic doctor to like help get him back on his feet. First thing she prescribes us, high dose of vitamin B for his
Oh,
nervous
wow.
system to help the neurological damage from the thing." So I'm just giving some examples because they're very all over the place, but always like, uh, yeah, some sort of assistance to the next level of our evolution when we can't maybe see it ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah, something that would seem so unrelated, but like the idea of the abundance tying to like, something that I noticed, Bambi would have stomach problems. And so I would try to tie it like, did she eat something? Did this happen? Did this
Yeah.
happen? And finally I was like, it's when I'm stressed. Like, and
Yeah.
so yeah, it's so crazy that like their physical expression can be tied to like what's going on with their person emotionally.
Yeah, and it can be easy to get obsessive with it, to be like, "Oh my God, there's a thing. What did I do?" Like we can kind of zoom in,
Yeah.
and I don't want anyone to go there because look, I do this professionally, so clearly my mind goes there too of like, "What did I
Yeah.
do wrong?" Blah, blah. I've had to learn to allow myself to be human too, and to allow them to be dogs too, and to go, "Okay, maybe I don't need to analyze this and go deep into this. Maybe my wisdom's guiding me to a thing. And maybe I'll kind of contemplate, is
Hmm.
this, because I started noticing patterns. He would get hives, like really bad allergies, but like we used to have to take him to the emergency room, bad hives. And I hadn't fully processed my anger. So if I was angry, it would just be this flare up, but where it wouldn't fully go through me. And I'm like, oh my
Hmm.
God, every time my partner and I have a fight and I hold on to anger, he gets hives.
Mm, yeah.
So it was just this curiosity, not an obsession, where I was like, oh, okay, maybe I need to go to my healer to process my anger, and he's fine.
Yeah.
So
And what are some of your experiences with, because you also help people develop their own intuition so that they
yeah.
can connect with their pets?
Oh, yes, yes. There was a woman who came to one of my trainings, and I basically teach you how to do psychic emailing with your pet to be able to communicate back and forth. And her dog, she had a little chihuahua that would bark when she would leave for work, which that's very common. My dog had separation anxiety too
Yeah.
when we first got him. And this woman was diligent. She sat with the dog for 10 days every day and did this little movie exercise I teach in the training, where she just projected to the dog as if you're talking to a child and explaining, okay, I'm going to leave. I'm gone 8 hours. And then she shows, but I'm coming back. And you got the water here. You got music here. I'm leaving treats here. So and so dog walker will be over at 4. You'll go on your walk. Like, you show them the whole thing. Within 10 days, the dog had stopped barking when she left.
Mm. Yeah, I love that story, especially because I have a Chihuahua who barks when I leave.
Yeah. Well, she was diligent. So I would say like
Yeah,
10 full days she was like on it. But yeah, it can be. And the thing too with this work, like, they'll tell us stuff, but like a kid would tell you, maybe who's 5, I want ice cream all day, but you have to be the adult too to be like,
yeah,
cool to know that you love ice cream, and maybe we can have it for dessert 4 days a week, 5 days a week, but I'm not going to give it to you all day every day because I'm just getting this psychic message it's what you love, you know.
yeah, exactly.
So
Bambi would just
there's,
want to snuggle all day,
yeah,
and it
exactly.
wouldn't work out for either of us.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to use your discernment as well.
Yeah, yeah. So beyond dogs and probably cats, and we've talked a little bit about birds, but are there any other animals that you've done communication with?
Horses, we did in our training. And then I remember, God, where was I can picture I was on vacation somewhere. Dolphins. There were
Mhm.
these sad dolphins, and I just was like, felt to connect in with them. Oh, and I was in Mexico, and there were these llamas that were, they were either llamas or alpacas. I think they were llamas, that I connected into, who were telling me I was thirsty. And I went over to the men and they said, oh, they get water at this, and this. And I just got fierce. And I said, well, I can speak to them and they're thirsty. And I'm going to wait here right now until you get the water
Oh,
and you let
wow.
them drink. And then I'll know that they're okay. And then I'll leave. And they were like, oh, okay, ma'am. Like,
And they're like, okay, whatever.
no, but they didn't question it. And so
Yeah.
they just were like, this woman is pissed.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. I mean, I'm sure I'm missing something, but because we live in the modern world, I'm just so used to people calling me about their traditional pets. But yeah,
Yeah. And so after having, I mean, who knows how many conversations you've had with animals at this
hundreds.
point,
Yeah.
hundreds. Yeah. What what's like some general things that you wish more people knew about animals?
Yeah. They're wise. They're wise. Yes, they're animals, so it's this really interesting thing we have to hold both poles of, like, this is still a dog that licks its butt. And they have needs and desires. Something else I've noticed too is they do have different levels of, like, some of them feel like older souls to me, some of them feel like newer souls. So your dog may be a newer soul who's just more simple and doesn't have this profound wisdom to share, and then some dogs are. So, and that I believe anybody can communicate with them if you learn the language. If you learn the French or you learn the Spanish. To reiterate as well, their needs are your needs. So start to notice if you can't see it in yourself. Because I know, especially, I'm sure men deal with this as well, but I'm a woman, so I'm just speaking as a woman. I turned off that part of myself when I was young to, like, get to know my needs and to honor my needs and all of that. So looking at them to see what their need is also helps you have a clue when you might not be able to see it yourself. Yeah, and that they can help you expand and grow, and you guys can do it exponentially together. They're your little, like, healing partners if you let them.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. What are maybe some of the most common things that people's pets want them to know, whether it's like an end of life thing or just a general
Mm.
message?
Well, a lot of people carry guilt with the end of life stuff, and I've never heard an animal pissed at the end.
Oh,
It's
wow.
like,
Yeah.
let the guilt go. You didn't do anything wrong. You did your best. This is my life path. This is my soul path. Everything that the human does is of innocence. Everything that the human does is based on their level of consciousness, the best thing that they can do for the animal. So that's huge. They're all like, of course I know you love me, and let go of the guilt,
Okay.
is what I
Yeah.
hear a lot. that they're there on the other side. If you want to call them, if you want signs, ask. You know, you have free will. And so if you want them to make themselves apparent, just say, hey, can you come forward and show me that you're here? Or come, you can ask them to come into your dreams.
Okay.
You can say, can you come into my dream and visit or offer me a message? Yeah, those are some of the things that are coming to me right now.
Yeah. Yeah. And so people can communicate kind of through a request like that, or you talked about the images earlier, like there's different ways that people can send those messages.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing that's coming to me now too is just, when this is a process, this is why I work with humans because it can take us a while to retrust ourselves because we think
Yeah.
we're making it up. But my invitation is trust yourself when you're with your animal. Um, of you can pick up on how they're feeling and you can pick up on what makes them happy. Like if it like
Hmm.
trust those subtleties, uh, and and just start to practice there just to see like, oh, what does flash into my mind or my head when I'm directing a question in their direction,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I think something you said earlier was like it's more about the energy than the words. So it's like it's not so
Yes.
much that the dog understands this like string of words, but if you say it in like a thoughtful, present way, then it's like they're able to pick up what you mean, basically.
Yeah, the basics. Like if you're asking them what their favorite food is, like I would hold a joy in my heart because, like, oh, favorite food. And then I would flash an image of an empty bowl. So I would just kind of show an empty bowl with, oh, wow. So they would know, oh,
Yeah.
what makes me, oh, wow, in an empty bowl. And look at the bowl. Do you see in your mind's eye a salmon or beef or doggy froyo or whatever, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
But you know, I do see in themes that they really want the best for us, and especially animals that have passed really want like the humans to step into their potential, and
Hmm.
they will assist in guiding us to that
Yeah.
gently and in ways that are safe and aligned for us. They don't push.
So that kind of gets into like the idea that you work with humans so much, which is like the sole purpose. So do
Yes.
you find that the dogs have some like wisdom about that, or like they mirror directly that they have the same sole purpose as the human?
That's a really great. See, now I haven't that specific thing of they mirror directly the sole purpose. That's really interesting. And that'll be something that I want to look now from this to go, oh, is the sole purpose mirrored directly? Because,
Yeah.
you know, Hobbes, he just looked at me and rolled upside down like, duh, I've been waiting for you to figure this one out. Because to me, he's joy. Like if I had to give you
Hmm.
one word to him, I would say joy. And a lot of people come to me for my joy and my lightness and my play because they like, I want to open that up in myself as well. So perhaps, and I want to ask you about Bambi too, but I think they will plant the next little thing.
Hmm.
They'll
Yeah.
so yes, as far as the sole purpose, but they don't make it this big profound thing that's scary. It'll be like the one dog was like, pray for the guidance to open to your soul gifts. It's just like, here's this next thing. So it's like the
Hmm.
next piece of wisdom on the path to your soul purpose is to me what I see they come with.
Hmm.
But
Yeah.
what would you say? Like, do you see a mirror in Bambi of like, wow, she's here for this reason, or she embodies this, and it's something that you, in essence, you hold?
Yeah. So I'm going to do a whole episode on adopting Bambi. I would say that so when I first got her, I still had my old job and career in startups.
Hmm.
And I would be like on calls with investors, like pitching them. And I would see her in the background, like perched on the couch, like glaring at me, being like, I want to go for a walk.
Yeah,
And so it was just, but she was so happy with like food and walks and snuggles. And like it really, I think it like triggered in me like, why am I sitting on the computer talking to people? Like I'd rather be on a walk too.
yeah,
So I feel like there was definitely something about the pace of life. Bambi's pace of life is like eat some food, nap, go for a walk, have some
yeah.
more food. And I think that like my soul wants that pace as well. I'm still
Her
like
needs are
figuring
your
that
needs.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So there's definitely, I feel like she's inspired me to maybe shift some things around in terms of that.
Yeah, I'm curious too. Yeah, my guy's literally laying upside down with like everything hanging out. He's just such a cute dog.
Yeah.
Um, does she have an essence? Like if you had to say like one word that's Bambi.
I call her my little angel a lot. And there was also a time when I was on a Zoom call and the bed was behind me. And so she was on the bed and she literally was like perched on my shoulder in the picture. And she also guards me while I eat.
Wow.
She'll try to bite other people's feet if they walk towards me when I'm eating. So like this idea of like this like guardian angel
Guardian
kind of like
angel.
comes up in different ways.
Well, see, you've got me thinking with this co-creative effort here that your purpose is a guardian angel of something.
Oh, yeah. See, I didn't even connect to that even as I was saying
Yeah.
it.
That's why I was
Yeah.
wondering. Now, see, this could be a fun thing, discovering your soul purpose through your animal. Like,
Yeah.
that
Well,
could
I
be a
feel like
cool
that
workshop.
is, I
Yeah.
imagine that that'll come out when you do your 4 session
Yes.
series.
Oh, 100%. That your needs, your purpose, all of that will come out in that container. But yeah, that's such an interesting takeaway.
Yeah. Yeah. Like thinking about what words people use for their dog.
Yes, that's why I
Just-
asked the essence of like,
Yeah.
yeah, what do they embody that they're holding the space for you, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I like it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. Well, I feel like it's launching this podcast and just seeing the conversation around it, I feel like there's just a rising interest and awareness that this is even possible. My book club is reading a book right now about a woman who befriends an octopus in an aquarium. And it's just, I feel like it's rising in consciousness that people realize that this exists. So it's just,
Yeah,
it's really exciting and amazing that, you have so many years doing this
yeah,
and can offer that to people.
totally, totally. And yeah, thank you for bringing awareness to it too, because these guys, again, they are guardians of presence, and they offer us so much unconditional love that the least we can do is honor them too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Well, let us know where can people find you and follow along.
Yeah, so jamiewozny.com or at Jamie Wozny is my Instagram. And then specifically for the animal work, it's jamiewozny.com/animals with an S.
Okay.
And I will be posting as well about the free, I'm doing this event this month about compassion for them, sending them energy. So,
Yeah.
which is really, there's science behind the healing power of that too. So, yes. I
Yeah.
will share
That'll
with you
be
all the links.
awesome. Yeah. Thank you, Jamie.
Yeah, thanks for having me, girl. This was a great conversation.
I hope this podcast brings you closer to your furry friends. And if this episode made you think of something, why not share it with them? You can send the link in a text message, an email, or even put it in an Instagram story. And to help us reach more people with heartwarming and paradigm shifting stories about animal consciousness, please leave the podcast a 5-star review.